Yes, sir.
Yeah, we have a small discussion on yes, being a person who is being an expert who has really integrated or worked with Corda and Hyperledger and Ethereum. Can you just have a small comparison of your experience in using all those three?
Yeah. So I have the experience of these three platforms, but most of the industry is actually looking for the private blockchain platform and permission platform like Hyperledger and Coda, because most of the clients need that privacy and their identity management and everything inside a private network instead of hosting in the public. So nowadays, actually, the blockchain value is reducing by using this private network, because actually in the private network there is no blockchain, because it for reaching the consensus. Nobody want to know that which consensus we are using in a private network like Coda or Hyperledger, because we know the parties associated with the network. So we have our defined roles and everything. So in the public network, actually, everything is done by the miners or the whoever is participating in the network. So all the data is publicly available. That is a main problem why the clients are not ready to accept this. And there is no legally identifiable identity in the public network. So most of the industry is actually looking for private permission network instead of public permissionless networks.
Okay. And being a person into Corda actively, how do you think a blockchain researcher or a blockchain programmer can grow and serve more to Corda community? Can you just explain what Corda community is and how you can involve and evolve in Corda?
So basically, I start with a small POC development by using their own documentation. Actually, Coda don't have enough documentation or any other resources available in the network. So very limited resources are available. So the main thing is people are not ready to read the documentation very well before doing anything. So if we understood the documentation very well, the base is very strong, then we can easy to move on to any part of the development. But instead of that, people are skipping that very basic concept and just directly come to a development phase, and the client requirement saying that I need this kind of features, but they might not understand that okay, this feature is available in newest version of Coda. Every month or every year the Coda version is changing and new features are appending, and people are not really understanding what's the changes happening in the Coda. So the main problem I understand is this, and a very base level knowledge of Java like languages is required. And their Slack community is very best in that case of problem solving, and we can host a n number of questions in the Slack community. That is a development developers oriented community, and we will get more answers immediately with multiple developers and their perceptions, and they are ready to help for every question and every issue we are raising.
Okay. And as you told, there is a very active Corda community. What can you tell anything more about the community and the contributions that is possible to the community?
Currently, community contribution is possible because in the open source network only, Coda open source community. So there are two communities actually. The enterprise community is there and the open source community. Enterprise communities is defined inside that Coda company only, and the open source community is available to all, because we can easy to contribute that, and we can raise okay, this is the issue, or this is the new feature I am appending this development. You can easy to connect with them through the Slack community or directly mail them. There is a mail option is available in the Coda main network. You can join there and you can say that okay, these are the new branches I am trying to pull from your master branch, and I created this, and they put your effort to the verification team, and if they are accepted, they will definitely append. The main example is the last time ING. There is an ING, right? ING Bank. So last time they created a zero knowledge proof in Coda. So that
Okay.
accepted by Coda people, and but I don't know it's that is released or not. So they are still verifying the concepts and all.
Okay. That's great from you, Abhilash. And its time is 2 o'clock, and it's time for us to start. I think Jaran sir will take over and proceed.
Okay. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Jubilant sir. Welcome back. Let's start off the afternoon session. Next session planned is Coda Basics by Abhilash Sridharan. Abhilash Sridharan is a blockchain educator, enterprise architect, blockchain consultant with strong expertise on areas like artificial intelligence, cybersecurity, distributed computing, digital transformation, social evangelism, entrepreneurship, and business analysis. He has taken blockchain education programs for governmental and non-governmental organizations across India. He has contributed to the blockchain engineering division as a mentor in the first ever corporate innovation labs. He is a mentor to more than 1,000 students, 20 plus startups, and 25 plus social entrepreneurs through various incubators and communities. He is a certified Corda developer with practical experience in R3 Corda, Ethereum, and Hyperledger Fabric development. He is also a blockchain architect and trainer. I welcome you, sir, for the session on Corda Basics. Over to you, sir.
Thank you very much. Welcome to Coda session, everyone. My name is Abhilash. I'm a blockchain developer. So this Coda, so I'm directly coming to the Coda. What is Coda? So Coda is an open source blockchain platform for business, and this session is for a very beginner people, and whoever is expert also they can attend. And generally, I want to get a started developing blockchain application by understanding the base of Coda. So before moving on to Coda itself directly, we need to understand what is blockchain is, how it is evolved. So I started from the history. So before we start, there is an untold story of blockchain. Like in late 1992, three individuals who had all retired young people
Okay.
invited
Abhilash
there.
sir, I think
Yeah,
your screen is not shared.
yeah, okay. Now it's shared.
Presentation is not there.
Yeah, I shared just now. Maybe take a minute.
Okay. Okay, it's right.
Fine, right?
Presentation is not there.
Okay.
Yes, yes, perfect. Perfect. I think you
It's
can
fine.
put in full screen.
This is the maximum.
It's gone. Now it's gone. Yeah, yeah, okay.
Yeah, I reshared. So at the time I am taking a session on blockchain. I started with the cypherpunk movement actually. So in the late 1992, there are three individuals who had all retired young, invited their 20 of their closest friends to an informal meeting to discuss about programming and cryptographic issues. They called themselves as cypherpunks. I think many of you already heard about cypherpunks. If you are learning about blockchain, you should understand who is cypherpunk and what is their contribution in the blockchain ecosystem. From those humble beginning, an entire movement evolved actually. As the group grew, it was decided that setting up a mailing list would allow them to reach other cypherpunks. The mailing list grew in popularly fairly quickly and it included hundreds of subscribers who were exchanging ideas, discussing development, proposing and testing ciphers on a daily basis. In 1993, Eric Hughes wrote the Cypherpunk Manifesto. So you guys should read the manifesto. There is an interesting quote. Privacy is necessary for an open society in the electronic age. Privacy is not secrecy. A privacy matter is something one doesn't want the whole world to know, but a secret matter is something one doesn't want anybody to know. That is, the privacy is the power to selectively reveal oneself to the world. For example, when I purchase a magazine from a store and hand cash to the clerk, there is no need to know who I am. When I asked my electronic mail provider to send a mail, my provider need not want to know who I am speaking or what I am saying or what others are saying to me, right? So my provider only need to know how to get the message there and how much I owe them in fees. So therefore, the privacy is in an open society require anonymous transaction system. Until now, cash has been the primary such systems. An anonymous transaction system is not a secret transaction system. An anonymous system empower individual to reveal their identity when desired and only when desired. So this is the essence of privacy actually. Based on this principle, a number of attempts were made to develop digital currencies. So the first blockchain innovation is the Bitcoin, right? So before that, there is a lot of innovation had happened. The first one is the DigiCash was one of them. So David Chom is the person who behind the DigiCash. So DigiCash provided a broad and unique set of payment sizes for users, including micropayment actually. An email system was set up for currency trading, and many traders also took part of in off-market exchange as well. Tom's Gcash project name came with a close range of achieving a global level of success, but however, it ultimately failed to grow its use base to a sufficient size to support its operations. And the second, another attempt of anonymous transaction system was made by Dr. Adam Back in 1997 when he created the Hashcash actually. At its essence, this was an anti-spam mechanism which would add time and computational power cost to sending email, therefore making the sending of spam uneconomical. Means a sender would have to prove that they had expended computational power to create a stamp the head of a mail, similar to a proof of work system what we understood in the Bitcoin network before they were able to send it. So in the following year, Wade published a proposal of B money. The third one, B money. This proposal include two methods of maintaining the transaction data. First one is every participant to the network would maintaining a separate database of how much money belongs to users. All records
Excuse
are
me,
kept
sir.
by a specific group of users.
Excuse me, Abhilash sir.
Yeah.
Are the slides being moved?
Hello.
Because
Yeah.
everyone.
Yeah, please.
Are the slides being moved? Everyone is seeing only the first slide, I guess.
No.
Yeah, fine. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Just confirm.
So I didn't enter into Coda.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So why I explain this is because so before the invention of blockchain, there's a hell lot of tries or tries happen. So that you must understood before understanding a blockchain. So I'm moving to the Coda. So what is Coda? So in this session, what we are covering is first one is the genesis of Coda, and second one is the Coda way of thinking and Coda key concepts. I hope everybody can see my slide.
Yes, sir.
And these are the recommended reading items. Yeah, there's a white paper is available, technical and non-technical white paper is available. There's a blog post of Coda way of thinking, and everybody must go through Coda docs. So moving on to the first session, the genesis of Coda. Why build Coda and design rationale? Why build Coda? So uniquely amongst the enterprise blockchain platforms, Coda allows a diverse range of application to interoperate on a single global network. So Coda was developed by R3, an enterprise blockchain software firm, in collaboration with over 200 technology and industry partners. So today Coda is backed by a vibrant community of blockchain, DLT, distributed ledger technology developers continuously adding new features, functionality, and more. So permissionless blockchain platforms in which all data shared with all parties are largely unsuitable for business, right? So comparing with the other platform, Coda is a permissioned private network, and other platform like Ethereum, Bitcoins are the public and permissionless network. So this privacy concept is very important. Like I said before in the cypherpunk movement, how much important is the privacy. So industries will never go behind the public network. Instead of they will move behind the private network with the permission. So the R3 is evolved. Coda's designed to only share the data with the relevant parties. Coda is flexible and scalable and ensure a high level of privacy and security. Coda is a permission distributed ledger coupled with a workflow messaging network. It was originally built with a regulated financial institution in mind, actually. So mission objective of Coda is to establish the architecture for an open enterprise grade shared platform for the immutable recording of financial events and execution of logic. Its impressive scalability, transaction privacy, state consistency, workflow flexibility are suitable for a wide variety of enterprise settings, including capital market, trade finance, digital identity, insurance, healthcare, government and non-governmental, supply chain, and telecommunications. All these are the main use case of the Skoda. So the back to the basics. Here, this picture before the internet, now and after shared ledger. What problems are we are trying to solve with the distributed ledger technology here? So data consistency is one of the core feature of distributed ledger, and it is crucial to the problem that Coda is attempting to solve. Let's look more closely into why Coda believes that using a distributed ledger will remove the extra time and effort that business need to put in to keep data from all parties consistent. So when a business or financial institution, a bank, for example, transfer money from a client's account to receiver's account in another bank, both must check what was sent was valid, that the funds from the client have been sent, and finally that they were received correctly. All these checkings should have been happened right in the traditional system. So ensuring that the fund have decreased in one account and increased in the others require multiple checks from both sides of the transactions, as they need to be 100% sure that money hasn't magically disappeared or created out of thin air, right? So furthermore, a number of these checks are done manually, so requiring even more time and effort to ensure consistency. So if you are using a distributed ledger technology, a DLT, so we need not want this middle party to check whether all these checkpoints are exactly reached, and if the DLT is working properly, then the fund transfer from the one person to another person, it is immediately reflecting their both ledgers, updating the same copy. So they can easy to understand, okay, this is a transaction is properly happened. So money which is sent from A to B is happened successfully. So that is what they explained in this slide, defining the characteristics of a ledger. A distributed ledgers are systems that enable parties who don't fully trust each other to form and maintain consensus about the exercise, status, and evolution of a set of shared facts. So a distributed ledger could completely remove the need of this reconciliation, whether it is done by the interacting parties themselves to a third party. This is due to the nature of distributed ledger where all nodes, means the parties associated with the network, must be in the same state. So more specifically to CODA, a transaction is only committed when all involved parties, means a party A sent the particular transaction to party B, involved party, have accepted that the inputs and outputs of the proposed transaction are correct. So if anyone disagree, then doesn't take place. Otherwise, the transaction is committed and the fund or move between the parties are previously agreed. So in the normal Ethereum or kind systems, a transaction can easily initiate from A to B without any kind of checking from both end. So intro to CODA, I already done it. So in this section, I will give you a high level overview of CODA blockchain platform. You will see CODA, in order to meet the requirement of business, differs in a number of ways from traditional blockchain platform. Means once we start looking onto the CODA in the subsequent section, this overview will serve as a useful framework for understanding how the various parts of your CODA fit together. To understand CODA, we need to understand how traditional blockchain networks are structured. Means in traditional blockchain networks, each node on the network is identified solely by a pseudonymous public key rather than having a recognizable identity, right? So in an Ethereum network, if you have an identity, means you have a public key. It's a bit number and bit number public key. So that is not legally identifiable identity, right? If you are writing a contract between two parties, so instead of their identity, I am going to put a public key. So that is not acceptable. So any contract, any activity between two parties or two clients with a company or anything, so there should be a legally identifiable identity available in the network. Then only there will be a contract can be written. And managing between the identity is unencrypted and it is occurring using something called gossip protocol, which just read every message to everyone, and clearly this doesn't meet the need of the real business. And the message which we are sending in a public network, which is visible to everyone in the network actually. So that is also a negative of the public network, public permissionless network. So when real business strike legal agreements, they need to strike agreements with legally identifiable counterparties. So CODA is providing actually a legal identity to each node which is available in their network, and not with a pseudonymous public key. And equally, real business need to keep the detail of their transactions privately from third parties, right? So in the public network, that privacy is not there. So this is strongly desirable for a strategic but also often legal reason. And so meet need of businesses, CODA need to provide this legal identity and privacy for a client. So CODA networks architecturally. So for joining the network to a CODA, each node undergoes a KYC process. Like we are entering into a bank, there is a KYC process, right? So the same wise, there is a KYC process. Know your customer, like or know your node process will be happen. KYC process to try to obtain an identity certificate, and then when they join the network, they publish the certificate including the legal name. So their IP address is a public key as well as some other information to a network map service provider, and their node can use this network map service to transact with well-known counterparties on the network using their private point-to-point TLS encrypted messaging. So in the managing trade-off, designing an architecture of a distributed ledger platform is rooted in managing a set of trade-off, primarily privacy and confidentiality, scalability, security, complexity, and among others. Uh, the managing trade-off generally, when we design an architecture of a DLT platform, there are a set of trade-off to be managed. This primarily include privacy, confidentiality, scalability and security, complexity, etc. In R3, there is an optimum balance of trade-off for the domain that is intended to operate and the business problem is designed to solve actually. So also there are some options like a pluggable consensus that provide flexibility to the developers to tweak the trade-offs. First one is permissioned or permissionless. So there is no place for anonymous actors in the enterprise network, right? So the enterprise network entrusted with the sensitive information. So anonymous and likely unaccountable user poses a security threat to the network, right? Either by compromising confidentiality or by interfering in the correct operation of the system. So that is permissioned network. Permissionless networks are inappropriate for most scenarios involving regulated enterprises. So CODA is a permission network. Hello.
Sorry, sir. Please continue.
I think everybody can my section. There's no way to understand what happened here.
Yeah. Please, everyone, please mute your mic. You can ask the question and doubts in the post the session. After the session, you can share the questions in chat as well. Please continue, sir.
Okay. So if such a user means there is a threatened user such have no business being there, so then they should probably not be there. Further, a regulated enterprise are subject to strictly security requirements. No anonymous users must not be there in a enterprise network actually. So in this precise network admission process, likewise we said there's a KYC process before onboarding a node in the CODA network, and there is a certificate is generated, right? So in CODA there is a precise network admission process. An actor on a CODA network is represented by a node. A node is known to each other, and the system is designed to reject unauthorized nodes actually. So consequently, there is an expectation of accountability rather than the anonymity here. So moving on to the next, transactions or blocks. In the permission networks, for facilitating consensus, block with the multiple transaction is not required. The chain of transaction, when considering the permission network, the use of multi-transaction blocks is not required to facilitate the consensus. The chain of transactions and the peer-to-peer broadcast. In CODA, communications are peer-to-peer and need to know basis without broadcast. So in other public networks, when a transaction is happening, there's a global broadcasting is happened. So when you initiate a transaction with A to B, the AI created a transaction will be broadcasted to the every member of that particular network. So that is a global broadcasting. So in Coda, communications are peer-to-peer and a need-to-know basis without a global broadcast. So need to know is different from Ethereum public broadcast, quorum private transactions, or Hyperledger Fabric network channels approaches. In a Coda network, if Alice transact with Bob, then only Alice and Bob need to know about it, and possibly a regulator will be there. A transaction should be validated in between. So Coda do not share all encompassing views of the world. Alice and Bob share a view of a specific transaction that concern them because they are the parties to the transaction, but each has information on others doesn't have. And the message queue or RPC. So the system use AMQP, means Advanced Message Queuing Protocol over TLS, Transport Layer Security, which provides resilient routing and queuing even in the case that nodes are restarted. If even the node is restarted, this queuing process and resilient routing will happen. So AMQP is an asynchronous, performs well under the load. The AMQP protocol is working well with the load and provide guarantee about message delivery and when recipients are on offline also. So message queue up and retry until delivered. So when a message from A to B is happening, this AMQP advanced protocol is actually working well. One of the key requirements for enterprise is the ability to rely on courts of law in case of conflicts. So in Coda, contract also refer to a legal prose document that states the rule governing the revolution of the state over the time in a way that is compatible with the traditional legal systems. So that is a legal prose. A key requirement for the enterprise was the ability to rely on courts of law in the case of conflicts. So Coda having a contract concept that is actually used for the legal pros and cons. And this UTXO or account model. So many of you already heard about this UTXO in the Bitcoin session. I don't know Bitcoin session covered this or not. UTXO is the main model which is used by the Bitcoin. A UTXO is actually the unspent transaction output. In an accepted transaction, a valid blockchain payment system, such as Bitcoin, only unspent output can be used as an input to a transaction, right? So when a transaction takes place, the inputs are deleted and outputs are created as a new UTXO that may then be consumed in future transactions. So in the Bitcoin network, which use this model as a UTXO model, in the amount that is transferred to Bitcoin addresses during a transaction. So receive amount are used individually during a transaction and new outputs are created. So one for the receive and if it is applicable. One for the amount that is left over is the change output. So that is all about the UTXO. For the reuse, Coda use existing banking industry standards means standard libraries actually means it is working on a Java like environment. So most of the libraries are useful for a traditional banking system to easy to reuse and they can easy to join the network by using this Java libraries. Means the JVM can be modified to be deterministic here. So in this reuse case, so after whitelisting a small subset of class or methods, the JVM attack surface is greatly reduced. So contract developers have access to the huge Java ecosystem for migrating to the Coda blockchain system. But Coda also offer flexibility, pluggable consensus, flexible transaction model. State can contain arbitrary information, database, and messaging brokers. So the pluggable consensus means currently many of the industries are working with the Raft protocol and the BFT protocol. So if you have a bigger application with a large amount of transaction and you need a better speed, then you can easy to plug the Raft protocol consensus algorithm into your Coda. So then only that will keep that consistency in the transaction. So that and so as well as supporting different database, Coda has no fixed consensus system. So notaries provide a reliable. So I will come to the notary later. So therefore, on Coda network, the transaction validation and finalization process details may vary somewhat for different types of transactions. So here the database and message brokers. So Coda use is the relational database, SQL database, right? In the system, you can append your SQL database with the Coda blockchain. So the most of the traditional systems like banking industry, like all other traditional industries still is dealing with SQL relational databases. So you can easy to migrate that particular application into Coda with the same databases. Summary here, the Coda is designed to solve a range of problems for regulated enterprises, and Coda exists because other available platform did not satisfy the stated mission objective. Building a DLT platform require managing trade-offs. Coda is opinionated, but also facilitate the developers' flexibility. Hello, sir. I just want to know people understand this concept or not. Hello.
Yes, sir, up to a level. We are listening to you.
Hello.
Yes, sir.
Yeah. So I just covered some of the topic. So what do you understand about Coda right now? That's just I want to get a feedback. Hello. Anybody
Hello.
can answer that?
Yes, I want to put in, like, I just understood it's a permission blockchain where one single entity have to be contacted to the some organization who is issuing those smart contracts, and after their allocation, they can execute and write that smart contract. But I have same question regarding same thing, like who is the organization having control over that permission, like who or which organization has to be given permission and which organization to not, who has that to decision ability.
Permission in the sense you are saying about the verification or the validation processes.
Yes, like Indian government trying to put some application on this blockchain, right? Then it approaches to the organization. Then what's the base of that? It will allow government to put contracts or an individual to put contracts. And if so, then what are the parameters they'll be considering to approve them or reject them? Like to put decentralization in consideration.
Okay, in Coda, what is happening means, so if you are initiating a transaction in the Coda network, the transaction will be a need to know basis or one-to-one or one-to-many. Means in the transaction, you and the government is a parties. So you are sending a transaction to government. There are two parties associated with the transaction, you and the government, right? So only you both know the transaction and the transaction is initiated. You sign the transaction and it move to uh, the government side and they also sign a transaction. And being in that time, there's a verification authority called a notary here. They are actually notarizing your transaction. If your transaction is double spended or not, all these things should be checked before moving or initiating a transaction. And notary is not a centralized authority here. Actually, notary is not seeing any of your transaction. Notary is actually treating a transaction hash and a transaction index. So they can verify your transaction. It is not double spended and there is a smart contract. there's a contract associated with the CODA. So that contract is actually checking the legal validity of your transaction. The condition checking and something might be low. So all those conditions we checked in the contract first. So then only your transaction will be committed in the network. Hello.
Sir, can I ask a question?
Is that okay?
Sir, I have a question.
Hello.
Yes, sir.
Yeah,
I'm
please
clear.
tell me.
In no way there is no possibility that the notary can become malicious. I mean,
So please, I can't hear you.
sir, I'm saying that there is no possibility that the notary which is there involved for verification can become malicious or behave maliciously.
Okay. Yeah, if I have the control over the notary, means I can do that, right? But
Yes.
this
Mhm.
notary is yeah, this notary is a single node. Say not only a single node. Notary is a pool system, pool of nodes actually. Like the mining pool, there is a multiple nodes are available, right? So likewise, the notary pool is available. Inside the notary pool, any of the notary node is accepting transaction, checking double spending or not. That's the only thing they're checking. They're just checking the index, transaction index. If that particular transaction is already done or not. If the particular transaction is an asset transferring transaction or a token transaction. If it's a token transaction from A to B, the same token you are sending again, that's the only transaction ID is checking by the notary. Notary is actually dealing this consensus. So in the public network or Ethereum network, we know the proof of work and proof of stake are the protocol they are dealing with. So the same consensus algorithm where exactly happening here is in the notary pool. Not a single notary is doing this activity. There's a bunch of notary nodes are available. They are doing this consensus activity and they are reaching the consensus. Then only this transaction will be committed into the Coda blockchain.
Okay, sir. Okay.
Is
Thank
okay
you.
for you?
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So moving on to the key concept. After understanding this key concept, you might have a good understanding about how is this happening, what executing, what is the notary is doing here. Okay. So moving on to the Coda ledger, Coda network. In Coda, a Coda network is fully connected graph, global broadcast or host network. Communication is over to a peer-to-peer basis only that we already discussed. Here communication is using this AMQP over TLF, and network map service publishes a list of peers and graph ledgers assistant action and thing email and SMTP. So the Coda networks are fully connected graph with the connectivity from every peer to the other peer. There is no global broadcast that we already discussed this. There's no gossip protocol, and peer communication is reliably asynchronous and securely using the AMQP protocol and TLS. And network map publishes a list of peers like directory for having these identities. So how many of you use the torrent network before? I don't know. So if you are using a torrent network, how you are getting the data from a torrent system? There's a torrent client acting like there's a hash hash system. They are keeping the each known information hash table. They are keeping through that. When a movie you are seeing on a torrent network, okay, torrent will understand. Okay, these are the node which is available this data, and this will send to a .torrent extension file to you. Inside that, actually, this hash table of hash value of the particular nodes value will be available. So that is why you can communicate to that particular node and you can download the movie the same way. Here the network map service provider also keep the node information. Okay, node A is this having this much features. node B is this is the feature of key. Likewise, the key information about author.
Excuse me, sir.
So this is,
Excuse me,
yeah,
sir.
please.
Yeah, in between, I think there is some issue in connection because last part for the last sentence you've told it was not clear. It was breaking in between.
Okay, in the network map service.
Okay, so could you please repeat from that perspective? Yeah.
Yeah, last I concluded with the network map service
Yeah.
provider. For our network, actually, it is look like a phone directory which keep all the node information and what the node is actually. So that is a process actually network map service provider will like the same in the torrent system. The torrent trackers do the same. They keep the hackable data about the nodes, and you can communicate to the node to get particular file you can download or you can upload to the network by using the network map service provider. Okay.
Okay, sir. Please continue.
So ledger is subjective from each peer's perspective here, the Coda ledger. So two peers are also guaranteed to see the same version of any on ledger fact and they are shared. Here, Alice, Bob, Carl, Demi, Edie are the nodes, particular nodes, they are information. And Alice and Bob, they share the information 1 and 7. That's the shared fact between Alice and Bob. That's a transaction happened between them. So that is listed in this PPT. So if it is in a public network, Alice, Bob, Carl, Demi, everybody should have every information, right? But here the need to know is Alice and Bob who shared a transaction that is 1 and 7 that is known to Alice and Bob only. So that is the core concept. So in Coda, there is no single central store of data. So like with other blockchain platform, there is a single central store of data. So instead, each node maintain its own database of those facts that it is aware of, right? So fact and know those that it is involved with. For example, if there are no representing Alice and Bob on the network, and Alice loans some money, Bob will store an identical record of the fact about that loan, right? So if the only parties involved with the loans are Alice and Bob, so then they will be the only nodes that ever see or store this data. That is Alice and Bob who shared 1 and 7 as a shared fact here. So important thing is the result of this design is that each peer only see a subset of facts on the ledger and no peer is aware of the ledger in its entirety. And moving on to the next, anonymity of a bilateral ledger. So each node maintains its own vault of state. In this example, Alice and both have the copies of their shared state as well as states that are known only to themselves. The facts are like rows in a table. So here 1 and 7 are the shared fact and 11 is not sharing here. The black square 11 here is an example of a on ledger fact not shared with any other peer. So the state, I'm moving on to the next key concept. It's Coda states. The states are the state model can be used for literally anything. State is an immutable object representing a fact known by one or more at a specific point in time. State can contain abstract data, allowing them to represent fact of any kind of information like the stock, the bond, loan, KYC data, identity information, or anything. So if I am creating an application with an IO, so then these are the data available in the state ID form, from which party to, amount, buy, penalty paid. All this information I can keep inside a state of a CODA, of particular CODA blockchain. So in Ethereum network, comparing with Ethereum, what we are writing is same data structure in a smart contract. Here we are writing this kind of data structures of a particular transaction. Means we are writing CODA state. The state can contain anything. So in CODA state, don't represent digital cash. The state model can be used to represent literally anything. The state is statistically typed, and IOU state is always an IOU state. So what here I mentioned. So the states are type, and IOU state is always an IOU state here. The state is a double object representing a fact of known by one or more CODA node at a specific point in time. I think. States are immutable objects that represent the shared fact with an agreement or contract at a specific point in time. State sequences. A state are immutable. They cannot be modified directly to reflect a change in the state of the world, actually. So instead, the life cycle of shared fact over time is represented by a state sequence here. So when state need to be updated, we create a new version of the state representing the new state of the world, actually, and make the existing state as historic here. So you can see the mule state actually can it create a new state. The sequence of the state replacement give a full view of the evolution of the fact over the time. That means we can picture the situation as per the picture here. State sequence. The vault track state sequence side. Vault means there's a database. Vault can be considered as a database here. So each node on the network maintaining a vault. Vault is a database where it track all the current and historic state that is aware of, and which considered to be relevant to itself. So we can think of a ledger from each node point of view, and set of all the current state that is aware of. So a vault will keep the head of the state sequence here. So there is 2 sequences, 2 or 4 sequences are available here. So all these sequences head are stored in the vault. The vault track the head of each state sequence. Means why? Because it is keeping means. So the state head will be the new output state here. So that particular new output state will be consumed for an upcoming transaction. So this historic state is not going to take as an input state of any new transaction because it is already historic. It is not going to use for a new transaction creation processes. Instead of it is keeping for a history only. A ledger from each peer's point of view consists of all the state sequence head or non-historic state tracked in the vault. So let's move on to the another thing, transactions. The transactions are proposal to update the ledger actually. Means a transaction proposal will only be committed so if it doesn't contain double spend. So transaction should not be double spended one. It is contractually valid. Somebody already asked about the contract before. So the transaction should be contractually valid. So it is signed by the required party also. So when we are creating a state, we will define, so inside a state, we already said that inside a state, these are the attribute ID, from, to, amount, by, penalty paid. So this is a custom attribute they created. So inside this attribute, we mention the party, from and to. So these two parties should be signed for a particular transaction, and there's a contract which will be validating that, for example, the amount should not be less than zero. So if you are specifying a zero amount transaction, the transaction should not happen, right? Should not be happened in the network. So all those conditions, the business logic conditions, we can write in the contract, smart contract. So Coda use a UTXO model where every state on the ledger is immutable. The ledger evolved over time by applying the transaction. So the transaction update the ledger by making zero or more existing ledger state as historic and producing zero or more new ledger states as output. The transaction represent actually a single link in the state sequence as seen before. Transaction can be arbitrarily complex. Transaction may combine issuance, update, and exist. The transaction can contain any number of input, output, and reference of any type. Input and output means, so if you are dealing with an application of a banking transaction, you are initiating a transaction with your balance, right? So the balance of your last balance can be a sequence of states, can be a sequence of transaction, might be there is a lot of historic state will be there behind that transaction. So your balance state is a new input state that we are going to consume to create a new output state. So in a bank transaction, we are defining only one output state is created, and the input state will be your balance state sequence head that we are getting from your vault. So that balance state sequence head we are using as an input of a transaction, and there is an output is generated, and that particular input we are taken before will be a historic, and a new output state is created with a reduced balance. So if you having $100 balance and you are initiated a $50 transaction here, and the new output state will having created with a $50 balance. So a transaction can contain a number of input and output and a reference of any type, right? And moving on to the another slide, transactions are atomic. So transactions are atomic mean either all of the transactions proposed changes are accepted or not. There are two type of transactions actually in the notary change transactions and general transactions. So committing a transaction. So initially a transaction is just a proposal to update the ledger. It represents the future state of the ledger that is designed by the transaction builder. To become reality, the transaction must receive signature from all of the required signers. Each required signers append their signature to the transaction to indicate that they approve the proposal. So if all of the required signers are gathered, the transaction becomes committed. This means that the transaction inputs are marked as historic and cannot be used in any other future transaction, and the transaction output become part of the current state of the ledger. So that is all about committing a transaction. And transactions are not instructions. Transactions are not instruction that require action-based action. Instead, the transaction creator calculate and update ledger, which is reflected by the output state. So the transaction are not instruction which require action. Instead, transaction create, calculate, and update a ledger which is reflected by the output state. The output states are the updated ledger. In other words, Coda transaction state which what the updates are as open opposed to how to calculate the updates. Transaction in summary, any peer may create a transaction proposal. So anybody who is initiating a transaction in the CODA network, they are creating a transaction proposal. And transaction proposals are uncombined by default. So for a transaction proposal, it must be digitally signed. So if you are initiating a transaction in the CODA network, you are initially signing a transaction and then will verify by all required peers on the need to know basis, means the party. So the before we extend, there's a use case with a user and a government. Government is a counterparty. They also sign the transaction. Once the transaction is committed, it marks the input state reference as historic and create a new output state reflecting an updated ledger. So moving on to the contract. Hello.
Hello, sir.
Hello.
Hello.
Yeah. Yeah. So any doubt in between? No, right?
Participants, if you have any doubt, you can put in chat box or you can directly ask. Sir, if they will share it in chat and we will show it in the last.
Okay. So moving on to the contract here. So contract in CODA do not describe how states are created, but they do not define the certain properties. So these properties constrain the state transactions that will be allowed, like a checklist. In this way, we can validate the proposed state transaction. So in effect, one or more parties of a transaction propose a new state of the world, and the contract agree with this new state or not. Contract also mention legal pros that in case of a dispute would presumably the accepted in a court of law. State reference contract. In effect, state mention the code that will allow or prevent their creation and consumption. So each transaction state specify a contract type. So when we are creating a state in CODA contract, we will definitely connect that particular state with a contract in the CODA. So in the contract, we will define how this transaction should be verified. Means the transaction attribute should be verified. That's a legal condition we can also write in the contract to check whether the input is fine with that legal agreement or not. And a contract take a transaction as input and states where the transaction is considered valid based on the contract rule. So transaction is only valid if the contract of every input state and every output state considered to be valid. The contract code has access to the full capabilities of the language, including checking the number of input, outputs, commands, or attachments, and checking whether there is a time window or not. We can create a time window for your transaction. Checking the content of any of these components, and looping construct various assignment function calls, helper methods, and so on. Grouping similar states to validate them as a group. For example, imposing a rule on the combined value of all the cache states. A transaction that is not contractually valid is not a valid proposal to update the ledger, and thus can never be committed to the ledger. This way, contract impose a rule on the evolution of state over time that are independent on the willingness of the required signers to sign the given transaction here. So hope you understood the contract. Transaction may contain multiple state types. Multiple contract can be referenced in a transaction. The CODA application, CODA platform will use the reference contract code to verify a proposed transaction here. There's a, in this picture, there are two cash contract and bond contract are actually used as a reference here. So when it here is a state which should be so when you are initiating a transaction proposal, the transaction force will actually initiated from the state. That state will be referred to these two contract. If this two contract condition is validated or it is fine with your transaction values of the attribute, then only it will be committed to the CODA network. Means here you can check contract code. Means here this is a condition, transaction dot inputs dot size greater than equal to 0, and the transaction must have 0 inputs, and transaction must have one output. Means transaction dot output dot size equal to 1. Means so we are here we have a reference transaction for the state head we are using as a transaction input, and there is no output state it is creating. Means so there is an initiation process in an application. There is no output state will be created. There is no output will be created for a particular transaction. So this condition is valid. Transaction dot inputs dot size equal to 0. So there is a fund transfer in transaction is happening. There is an input and there is a one output. We already know in the business perception. So we will use transaction dot outputs dot size equal to 1 in a condition in the contract, and the lender cannot be borrower. Is the transaction of 0 dot lender not equal to transaction dot output of 0 dot borrower. Means the lender and borrower cannot be the same person, and output state must contain an amount greater than 0. So if it is a fund transferring application, it's a banking application, so your transaction dot output dot amount, there is a field which we define the amount value that we will get from the state. That particular value will be checked in the contract if the amount is greater than 0 or not. If it is not greater than 0, the transaction is not executed. The contract code is a pure function executed in a deterministic environment on a need to know basis which verify transactions. And what is commands? So we have seen how contract layout allowable state transaction propose the state transitions. So you have seen that the necessary signatures are collected to prepare to finalize the transaction, so which will consume the input state and create a new output state. Okay, so you could say that the purpose of a transaction is implied. So in case this is not clear, consider that Alice proposed to adjust her amount by $10 to Bob. Implicitly, she is offering to make a payment, and she is informing Bob about her opinion of what that means. State transition proposals are technically sufficient to model a transaction, but it becomes confusing as complexity and the variety of possible transaction type increases. What if Bob has difficulty understanding Alice's intent? Or particularly in more complex settings, the CODA team created a concept of commands. Commands are part of a transaction and give them intent. Means intent help guide interpretation, right? So using the cash example, if Alice create a $10 output of thin air, let's suppose she's entitled to you. So you would call this my or issuance. If you consume the state and output of Bob has $10, you would call this paying or moving. So if you had no state, you would call this burning or retiring or redeeming, that we can see. So command parameters are commands parameterize transaction linked to their intent and specify the required signers via a list of public keys. And timestamp. So timestamp means in CODA, timestamp assert that something happened within a specific window. This window can be open or closed. For example, between the earliest time and the latest time, and before the deadline time and after the commencement time, never the exact time. So you cannot find it is on the exact time range map to our understanding of real world business process and legal process legal pros that is enforceably in law of courts. For example, an offer open to acceptance before a certain deadline become invalid quite naturally, as the overseeing verification rule design acceptance if it arrives after the deadline. So timestamp assert that the transaction happened within a specified time window. And attachments. So CODA transaction may include attachment that are included with the transaction but are not part of the transaction itself. So these are .zip file or .jar file attached to the transaction. So attachment can include legal pros with the template and parameters. So data files that support transactions such as calendars, currency definition, or even financial data, the contract code and associated with the definition. So in other blockchain platforms, if you want to use the attachment in an Ethereum network, you cannot, right? So if you're inputting your particular documentation or anything attached in an Ethereum, it will directly convert it to a particular hash and it is not decrypted other side. So there is a limitation. So for that purpose, we will always associate Ethereum with the interplanetary file systems, that IPFS or something, to attach the file content with Ethereum transactions. But in the case of CODA already have this feature of attachment. So we can use attachment feature for associating your agreement, documentation, or any other contractual papers with your transaction. So insert your documentation in a contraction, it will directly convert to an attachment hash. That attachment hash is appended with the transaction. So attachment may contain contract code and associated state definition. Anything, any file we can transfer. The legal pros, template and parameters, data file which support the contract code, example, currency definition, public holiday, calendars, or financial data. Attachments are zip file referencing a transaction by hash, but not included in the transaction itself. Creating a transaction proposal. Transaction are atomic. Transaction contains 0 or more input and output state. States are grouped by type. Transaction contain one or more commands. Transaction can contain a timestamp. Transaction can contain 0 or more attachments. Transactions are proposed and then subsequently signed and verified by the required peers. And moving on to the flow, Alice and Bob agree upon a particular IO application. So what means, first Alice created new transaction and signed on it and signed the proposal and sent to Bob. And Bob, what he had done, Bob inspect the proposal and verifies it and then sign on it. Bob also sign on it, and Bob send back the transaction and his signature to Alice again, and Alice verify the transaction and check Bob's signatures, and finally it got reached to a notary pool. The notary pool will check and verify, okay, this transaction is not double spended, and then it's committed to the blockchain. So this is a flow, actually, how this flow is working, and all these things are defined. There's a business flow we will define. Okay, there is a business process. So when we are connecting with a client, they're having a certain business flow. So when creating or onboarding a particular person into their company or a firm, there may be a different customized flow or process they are using, right? So all those business flows we are incorporating in the CODA flow. So communication between nodes only occurs in the context of the flow. So we should define a flow in the CODA creation time. So that flow will define communication between nodes only occur in the context of this flow, and it is point to point, right? And built-in flows are provided to automate the common task. And this is a flow example. And two-party deal flow means here you can see there's an initiator who Alice get the data from the internal system, and he create a transaction and sign on it. And there's a dotted line which is specifying that the flow suspended and checkpointed. The time window for that, there's a sub flow we have written. There's a single flow, that means initiator and the end here in the first line, initiating the flow, and there's a end for that particular parent flow. And then the down responder, there's a responder flow or the sub flow saying that collecting the signature or the verifying the transaction from the counterpart. These are the two flows we defined in a particular transaction for a fund transferring activity. So the Alice who created a transaction and sign on it and sent to the responder flow, the next flow, the Alice signing and the process will be in the parent flow, and in the responder flow or the sub flow, the Bob who inspect and verify the transaction and sign on it, and then only that particular transaction will move to the parent flow again and inspect and verify the transaction and committing on the blockchain ledger, and it is going to end. So the subflow means the flow can be composed by starting a flow as a sub process in the context of another flow. So the flow that is started as a sub process is known as subflow. The parent flow will wait until the subflow to return. So that is happened in this particular picture. The subflow, the parent flow will be waited from this point flow suspended and checkpointed, and the subflow will be initiated, and it will be wait for the subflow to complete. Then only the parent flow will be completed at the end. And moving on to the consensus, two type of consensus are there. So the consensus is the process by which all parties achieve certainly about the shared state. The CODA applies two type consensus, means unique consensus and the verification consensus. So unique consensus, first one is unique consensus when peers reach certainly that that the output states are generated by a transaction are the unique successors to input state reference by said transaction. So this is how CODA prevent double spending. Means we can say that uniqueness consensus is a requirement that none of the input to a proposed transaction have already been consumed in another transaction, checking the double spending. In one or more of the input have already been consumed in another transaction, this is known as double spend, and the transaction proposal is considered invalid. So unique consensus is doing that. And verification consensus. Verification consensus, the validation or the verification consensus, it is not enough to verify the proposed transaction itself. Means we must also verify every transaction in the chain of the transaction that lead up to the creation of the input of the proposed transaction. This is known as walking the chain. Suppose, for example, that a party on the network propose a transaction transferring a treasury bond. So we can only be sure that the bond transfer is valid if the treasury bond was issued by the central bank in a valid issuance transaction, or every subsequent transaction in which the bond change hands are also valid. the only way to be sure of both condition to walk transaction chain means the historic transactions. So we can visualize this process as in the picture here. And somebody asked about the notary before. The notary is, so when a peer send a transaction to the notary service, one of two things will happen. So if any of the input states are already referred in the notary map, then the notary will throw an exception. If none of the input states are known to have been previously consumed, then the notary adds input states to the map and the first transaction. This process provides uniqueness and census action. Here, the main thing in the transaction will be checked. The map value indicates that the ID of the transaction which you use state as a input and marked it as a historic as well as the identity of the request fee. This is a service also.
Sir, hello.
Hello,
Yeah,
am I audible, right?
yeah. Now you are audible.
Okay.
For the last 1 minute,
So,
you were. It was not audible. That's
moving
right.
on. Okay. So
Okay.
moving on to the last content,
Okay. Thank you. Please proceed.
Oracle. So Oracle is the data or calculations which has been accepted by the multiple peers as an authoritative, binding, and definitive or agreed set of value or a range of calculation means this the Oracle we are used for a particular application development means so we need an external data.
Sir, PPTs again. It's not visible right now. Sorry for the interruption, participants. Due to technical issues, sir will join shortly. He's reconnecting right now. Yeah, so we can see right now. We can see the screen. Please proceed. So you are not audible.
No, it's fine, right?
Yeah, now we can hear you, but now PPT is not there.
I don't know why it is not disconnecting again and again.
Yeah, now we can see.
Okay, so the Oracle provide authoritative information about the external world. For example, consider a currency swap application for currency swap. So we will Sally's wish to trade with Bob €50 for $80. Is that fair, right? So all those information we will get from the external environment. So those external environment data providers should be a trustworthy party. That is, they are using usually. So we consider Oracle as a trustworthy party associated with our application. They are providing the external data. That is the both party or the client who is creating the application should agree with Oracle that, okay, you provide a correct and well-defined data for our application. So the parties can agree to use the third-party codes to establish a rate of exchange. So this third party is known as Oracle actually. So Oracle embedding data in commands. So the Oracle would provide the rate of exchange to Alice. Then Alice would use the swap command to parameterize the transaction, proposing that she sent 50 euro to Bob and Bob sent $80 to Alice, and the current rate is 1:1.2. Means Alice, Bob, and the Oracle are listed as required signers in the swap command. So when a transaction is initiating for a swapping the currency, the Oracle will provide the external world data to the particular transaction, and the parties associated with the transactions are Oracle and the sender and the receiver. These three parties should sign the transaction, then only this transaction will be initiated in the CODA network, embedding the external data in a transaction. Oracle are an authority that attests to off-ledger fact need to verify the transaction. So the remaining portion I will discuss in the upcoming session. So here I am winding up my session here, and we can continue on any question and answer section.
Thank you, sir. Yeah, thank you, sir. I'll share my screen for the questions. We have a couple of questions, so I'll share my screen. Okay. Abler sir, can you see my screen?
Yeah, fine.
Yeah, these were some of the questions we got in chat.
How do you differ from each other? I am not working on a theme level. As far as supply chain, for the supply chain concern, the first question I am answering for the supply chain concern. For the supply chain, this private network is not sufficient for some extent actually. So the main application developers of the supply chain is IBM. IBM blockchain. How many of you know IBM blockchain? I don't know. IBM is joined together with Walmart. They create a supply chain, food supply chain, and the thing is, the visibility for a public is very less in a private network. So instead of that, we can recommend another platform with a public and private combination, like Hedera Hashgraph. There's a new platform. They have both blockchain parts, public permissionless and private permissioned part. We can easy to associate with application. I think that is the answer for the first one. Hello.
Yes, sir. Yes.
I don't
please
know
proceed.
who hosts this first question. Can you talk with that guy? If my answer is correct for him. And the second question is, does CODA have cryptocurrency, right? CODA don't have any cryptocurrency concept. CODA having a token. Either you can create your own token by using CODA token SDK. So there is a token SDK is available. The main problem, if you are creating a currency in a private network, people won't accept. So all those cryptocurrency, if you are creating a cryptocurrency or any other token values, it should be in the public network. Means the Bitcoin in a public network, Ethereum Ether is in a public network, and there is another platform Tezos. They are new in the cryptocurrency market. So there everyone's cryptocurrency is in a public network, but you can create token inside this private network for your private transactions. In a closed entity network, you can create your own token, but there is no value in the outer world. And the third question is, what are the new opportunities for engineering graduates related to this enterprise platform R3? Means many enterprise application in the banking system and healthcare management system and trade finance, all these applications are mainly built on top of R3 kind of blockchain. Not only R3, you can learn any private network, any private permission network. There is a more opportunity because clients are actually required these kind of privacy and anonymity plus a legally identifiable identity in a network. And client means multiple firms actually. Those firms are not ready to reveal their data public in a public network. So if you are learning this R3 or Hyperledger Fabric, Hyperledger Indy, and other platform like Ethereum also having an enterprise version, that also you can think about. And there is a quorum, there's a privacy concern built on top of Ethereum. And all these platforms having the privacy concepts, that is good for the development. And one thing mainly you should think about is the transaction rate. So most of the blockchain platforms still having struggling with the number of transactions. So you should think about the number of transaction per second is very important for a client. In a normal system, number of transaction achieving is very easy for a traditional legacy system, but there is a lot of drawbacks. Means there is no trustworthy, there is no transparency, there is no resilience, and nothing will be there. But when you are learning a new platform, you should think about all these things: the security, transparency, permission, number of transactions, the TPS, all these things, and scalability. And the main important thing is their roadmap to the next level, because all these blockchain platforms are in a beta stage. We cannot consider it as a full-fledged application. So each and every month and every year they are updating their new changes. And so Quora can be used only for a specific application or a business logic, or it can combine cryptocurrency with the business logic. You can combine with the cryptocurrency, means it is not possible because Coda is another platform. Cryptocurrency platforms are the public platforms, but you can interconnect with using your middle party application. But this two application will be different two aspects, because there is an example I can say. In current scenario, there's COVID situation is happening, right? So in the COVID situation, every day government is announcing the number of COVID patient numbers, a number of COVID patients in each district level. So those can be a public detail, but the user, the patient detail cannot be public, right? So those things should be in a private network, right? The private permissioned area of particular network. And your patient number of patients increases, and all these details, the death numbers and everything can be public. That's not a problem. So connecting with the public and private networks should think a different applications like this. So there should be a public need is there, so it can be connected with the public network. So all those details will be available in the public platform, and or other private details should be available in the private platform like Coda or Hyperledger Fabric, Indy, etc. I think I answered for all.
Yes, sir. So I think our question answer
Good
section is
afternoon, sir.
over.
Sir, one more question.
Yeah, good afternoon.
Yeah, there is one more question.
Sir, actually, this blockchain is avoiding the third-party relationship, right, sir? But anyhow, if you want to get Bitcoin or any type of cryptocurrency, we are depending upon the third party only, right, sir?
Third party means some other trading platforms will be there. So what they are doing is they are creating their own trading platform, not using the direct Bitcoin platform. So people can easily directly connect to the Bitcoin platform with their own, right? So
What about
intermediary security. Hello.
Yes, sir. What about security, sir? When we have obtained Bitcoin from that particular organization or
Third
something like
party
that?
means the third party is not acceptable. Means we cannot assure that the third party is providing the security. Or if you are buying a coin from a third party, they will create their own wallet, right? There is no Bitcoin wallet. Instead of that, their platform will create a wallet for you, and inside that wallet they will show a value. Okay, you have 1 Bitcoin. But Actually, that third-party application is not providing a coin for you. In my understanding, they are holding your coin in your wallet, just a reflection. Yeah, they are saying you are the owner, but anytime they can scoot with your money. So a lot of problems already occur. But you can directly go to the bitcoin.org site and you can download their own wallet, and then you can join to the Bitcoin network. Then it's not a problem. Otherwise, if you are using any other trading platform, the third party platform, there is no assurance for that. Hello.
So where distributed ledger, right, sir? That open ledger, where it is actually maintaining? It is in our account or some mimer type of name you have mentioned, right, sir?
DLT in the public network, what's the problem means all the data will be stored by everyone. So if I send a transaction to you, our transaction copy will be available to all others computers in the network, means all other nodes in the network. So the storage is one of the main issue in the public network. I need not want to store others transaction in my computer because that's actually spoiling my storage space, right? So in a private network, in a CODA, we said that it's a need to know basis. If I am sharing a transaction from A to B, we only know our transaction. We only store our transaction from both A and B have the copy. If B and C shared another transaction, only they have that particular copy. We don't require that, right? So that's it. You understood, right?
One more thing. Yeah, sir. So one more doubt. This transaction can be done only among the people who are having wallet in, I mean,
So,
in a Bitcoin transaction or cryptocurrency.
yeah, whoever is trying to initiate a transaction, they should be part of this network. Because in this network, considering the CODA network, if you want to part of this network, you have a KYC process, and the network doorman service will provide a certificate for you. Then only you are onboarded to the network. So then only others nodes that particular network is visible and understand that okay, you are the person who joined the network. Then only they can initiate, or you can initiate a transaction with other who is also part of this network. Otherwise, you cannot. Whoever is not part of this network, you cannot initiate anything.
So what is this cryptocurrency role in share market, sir?
Cryptocurrency role in share market. That thing I don't actually. Cryptocurrencies values are fluctuating day by day, right? So mainly we are dealing with the Bitcoin and other colored coins. So each day the value is fluctuating. There is no controlling authority saying that okay, each day the how much value for one Bitcoin. In a one day we can say that 15 lakh will be the Bitcoin value, and another day it can be reduced to 2 lakh. So there is no control over this cryptocurrency. So I don't know. So people are trading more Bitcoin. That is why the value is increasing. So people are saying that the Bitcoin is the future of asset, future asset actually.
So based on what the Bitcoin values are changing, sir? Only in share market Bitcoin or in the normal Bitcoin, sir?
The Bitcoin value is changing based on this usages only, because more people are using means the value will be increases, right? So you create a token, it's having some other name, it's only used by 5 to 10 people means the value is very less. So if it is flourish all over the world and people are trading with that particular token, then the value will be increases, means the usage is increasing, right? So you can, the need will be increases, the value will be proportionally increasing. That is the common economics.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much, sir.
Yeah. Thank you.
Your time is running low, so we are stopping the question answer session now. Any more questions you can put in the chat. We'll consolidate it and send it to Abhilash sir, and we'll get back to you. So thank you so much, Abhilash sir, for the session. We hope participants got valuable takeaways from the session on CODA basics. The session articulated basic ideas pertaining to CODA. So once again, thank you, sir. Thank you for your session.
Thank you.
Okay, and for the kind attention of participants, the feedback link is shared in chat. Kindly fill it before you leave, and a whole bunch of interactive sessions are on pipeline for tomorrow. We'll be starting with blockchain and graph databases handled by Dr. Sajeev GP. followed by a session on human values, ethics, environment conscious SOPs in blockchain perspective by Dr. Muruganandam P. And the last session will be developing blockchain towards interdisciplinary applications, which will be handled by Ramaguru Radhakrishnan. So participants are reminded that there will be an examination after the session on Saturday, coming Saturday. The certificate for the program will be issued only on successful participation in exam. So once again, I thank each and every participant for their active participation throughout the STTP. Tomorrow's session will be starting at 9:30 a.m. Hope to see you all tomorrow. Stay home, stay safe. Bye-bye.